Hello friends. Recently, there have been the rise in tension between two of the Asian giants. Both of them are nuclear armed states. In this presentation, we are going to discuss about the present position of India and China regarding the conflict. We will try to find out whether these two Asian giants are into the state of war, or there will be no war, or they are merely over criticizing the other. And we will also try to address the question considering if India is being used by the US in order to contain China, or India is coordinating independently in this situation. Before starting, I would like to thank all of you in behalf of our team, and in order to encourage us for future analytical presentations, a subscription would be of great help. Now, let's talk about the reason of misunderstanding between India and China first. This goes back to the history when Communist Party had started to rule China and Tibet was just annexed. There are numerous reasons for China to annex Tibet, major among them being the security of mainland and resources available inside Tibet. After annexation of Tibet by China, India and China became the neighboring countries technically, and border tensions between them arises from this point. Afterwards, there had been numerous standoffs between two nations. Also, another major cause of tension is the Dalai Lama, who fled the Tibet after its annexation, and India provided the asylum, and until today, he acts as the head of state of Tibet from India, but unrecognized by China. Geographically, there are three major reasons of conflict between India and China. We will talk about them one by one. First one is the eastern region of Indo-China border, that is Arunachal region. This region is claimed by both China and India has been administrating the region. During 1962, China had conquered majority of this area, but later after India's request for US to get involved, they moved back, and since then India has been administrating the region. There is also a general saying that China provided this region for India to administrate in a gentle agreement of exchanging the western region, that is Ladakh. But time and over, both the nations bring forward their claim and conflict begins on both the regions. Second region of conflict in Indo-China border is the Middle Sikkim region. We also need to know that once Sikkim used to be an independent Himalayan nation, but India, under Indira Gandhi, annexed Sikkim as their province. There is also a general theory saying that India and China had gentle agreement to recognize the annexation of Sikkim by India and annexation of Tibet by China, mutually assisting each other. But in this regard as well, both the nations uses the privilege time and again. In this middle region, there is also Bhutan, where Doklam standoff took place in near past. Some news are stating that China is proposing Bhutan to give land with area number of times larger than Doklam Plateau in order to gain the access to Doklam region. But because of pact between India and Bhutan, India has been overseeing the affairs of foreign relations of Bhutan, and China seems to be on back foot. This middle region is also strategically important to India because this is near to the so-called Chicanx region, which borders between Nepal and Bangladesh, connects the eastern India to mainland and only about 30 kilometers wide. This Chicanx region is also lowland area, easily accessible from highland of Doklam and Sikkim. Hence, we can understand the interest of China and India in this region. Finally, the third region of conflict is the western region in Indo-China border. This region seems strategically important to China because this is region through which China is building the CPEC or China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and we know why CPEC is so much strategically important to China. Briefly stating, CPEC provides China the direct linkage to Arabian Sea and helps to overcome the energy and trade concerns through Malacca Strait. We also need to know that Malacca Strait is one of the major choking points in sea route, and India with their Andaman Islands in the mouth of Malacca Strait has the advantage in this regard. Hence, CPEC provides the alternate of Malacca Strait to China in case of need, and because of this the western region, especially Ladakh region, seems important to China. Now, as we have known the interest of both nations, and conflict with a long history has many twists and turns, but now we need to understand why both the nations are in standoff at this point of time. With respect to military strength and supply lines, both India and China fall short on this Himalayan region, the major factor being the tall Himalayan range. Also, the complex and rigid terrain of high mountains with barely noticeable human activities acts as a major barrier to de-escalate the situation. But in contrary to the rising tensions, both nations are trying to pressurize each other, the major tool being the proxies like trade and technology. The current situation arises in the context of ongoing conflict between China and US. US has long been in conflict with China. Many of us need to know about the fact that China and US were kicking and hitting each other since long ago. US had run various covert operations in decades of 1960s and 70s shortly after China's annexation of Tibet, and Cold War was at peak during those times. Later on, after recognition of mainland China as the true regime of China and opening the bilateral diplomatic and trade engagements by US had de-escalated the situation, and this de-escalation with China had obviously helped the US during Cold War against Soviets. But after the downfall of Soviet, the same understanding between US and China seems to be a major headache to US. During those times of Cold War, India, who was under the non-aligned movement and tried to maintain an equidistance between US and Soviet, made arrangements to address strategic concerns of both Soviet and US. There are various instances in history where India had taken support from both the nations in order to preserve their concerns. Later on, after the downfall of Soviets, there was sort of power vacuum over India, and US was the only power to cover and utilize that emptiness. China, on the other hand, was still developing and was not projecting their power outwards. Hence, US generally shifted their influence from Pakistan toward India. India became the major power in the region, and largest democracy was also keen to work with US in a unipolar world. Now, at present context, the same equation seems to be turned around. China is in conflict with US, and India seems to be trying to make a non-aligned position in between. But with US subtle push, India's enrollment in Indo-Pacific strategy and forming alliance with US, Japan and Australia, China and India both seems to be in phase of position. Also, India has been a major power not to recognize the China's Belt and Road Initiative BRI. All this obviously helps to agitate China, and with the historically unsolved border in between India and China, obviously there seems to be standoffs, and both seems to be in two separate political alliances in context of old politics. Then, why Russia seems trying to solving the puzzle? It is obvious because this step of Russia helps to de-escalate the situation, but more than that, this step helps them to counter the US interests. Just before US home election, Russia, being the successor of Soviets, has the historical ties with India and China, and seems like Russia is trying to utilize the same ties. Now, let's talk about whether India and China are really into war. The answer of this question is a bit tricky, but yes, they do seem to be really into conflict. In the context of standoffs in Ladakh and the region, with casualties of number of soldiers, they seem to be already into war, but both of them seem to be avoiding the war at the same time as well. At present context, war seems to harm both of them. For China, war somehow gives a break in their economic growth, and for India as well. With no major development of arms within country, war is the means to directly stop their economic growth, and also war makes them to completely fall on the vertical alliance under US with no any future leverage. Also, the Himalayan region with complex geography and tall mountains, less aerobic conditions for human, and lack of proper supply lines. All these factors act equally to both, and they seem to be not prepared for all of these. But complete surrendering of any of them is not on any of the equations, at least for now. And this dilemma has led them to be in proxy war with each other. And for people with keen interest in politics, they can visualize that it has already been started. Therefore, in the sense of proxies, they are already in a state of war. They are using the tactics of creating fear and pressure to others. Some examples are China publishing photos of armed movement in the region of Ladakh, or China or Indian media comparing the armed capabilities of each other, or India banning the China-made apps and tech-related companies, etc. They are also trying to create a sphere of influence for other nations on their proximity. Frequent visits of Iran by Indian ministers after Iran-China deal can be taken as an example, as both are trying their best. But in regard of this policy of influence, the Himalayan nations of Nepal and Bhutan seems to be in center, at least for time being. Bhutan, with an agreement with India, there is much less to get influenced by China, but China is continuously trying to pursue the Bhutanese. China are sometimes agitating the Bhutan regime, and sometimes they try to make a deal to solve problems including Doklam. In a way or other, they are trying to get Bhutan's regime out of direct control of India. In regard to Nepal, both are playing an interesting game. The Nepalese rurals are of communist background, and for observers, communists seem to be an ally with China. But in case of democratic Nepal, their prime minister seems to be an ally of Westerners. And with Nepalese agitation of Indian ruler, India seems to be working along with Western to influence Nepalese. On the other hand, China are using the oppositions inside the ruling party of Nepal to bargain with the Prime Minister of Nepal. Now, there seems to be an ongoing game of chess, and India and China are trying their best. Summing up, after stating the current situation, the way forward seems a bit irrational. India and China are both trying to reach on consensus, but border disputes are such matters where nationalism and politics both play at the same time, and people sometimes get overwhelmed with such issues of nationalism. The pressure of de-escalation of current situation will be on both the nations, but issue seems to be coming over and over again and again until US and China's dispute are settled or either of them surrenders for humiliating agreement. Thanks for viewing this presentation, and a subscription will be of great help. Also, please put forward your thought on the topic discussed down on the comment section.